everyone, Alexa Dunn here, and today I am going to be doing an on-screen demonstration of how to get started in Scrivener. A lot of you have asked for this. Scrivener is this mystifying software. Everyone is a little bit overwhelmed by it, I have found. If you're curious about kind of the bare bone basics of Scrivener, I do have a "What is Scrivener and why might you want to use it" video that has already been posted, and this is like your practical demo walkthrough video. So I'm going to show you on screen. I'm going to switch to on screen in just a moment. The basics, how you're going to create a file, set it up, formatting, all of the kind of elementary Scrivener things that you would need to know to use it. Also really special because I looked around and it doesn't look like most author demo videos have done this, and I actually did kind of cover it in my manuscript formatting video, but I'm going to repeat that for you here, and that is how to set up your compile settings in Scrivener. These are the settings that you use to take your Scrivener document and pop it out into a Word document, formatted manuscript document to share with people. It's a little bit mystifying, it's not intuitive, so I am going to show you, and I hope that that is helpful. Now, my one disclaimer about this whole Scrivener series, though I do hope this is what kind of makes it useful to everyone, I am a super basic bitch, for lack of a better term. I am so basic when it comes to Scrivener. I haven't really gone and watched tutorials or demos myself. I really only kind of use the most basic functions of Scrivener. I open it, I create files, I type into them, I compile it into a novel. I did teach myself how to do a lot of things in Scrivener, if I was super confused, I did go kind of look things up. But a lot of this I figured out through trial and error over the years of how Scrivener kind of works for me. And I hope that it's useful to all of you because, I am someone who is not an expert at Scrivener. I am someone who also is kind of overwhelmed by all of the things that Scrivener can do, because it can do a ton of things. But I only really use it to do 5 to 10 things, and those 5 to 10 things are all you really need to know to use Scrivener to write novels. So I'm going to show you that. So I'm going to pop you over to the on-screen demonstration, and I will see you in just a little bit. Okay, everyone, let's get started. Once you have Scrivener, anytime you open it, it's going to default open to the last project you worked on. So I can't quite show you the fresh setup of what it would look like the first time you use Scrivener, but this is my current manuscript. This is my NaNoWriMo novel, my contract book, which is why I collapsed everything so you can't see anything. So we're gonna create a fresh document, and I'm gonna show you how to set everything up in Scrivener. So click New Project, and this is always going to be the home screen. So this is what you're going to see the first time you open Scrivener. It's going to ask you what you want to do. As you can see, there's an interactive tutorial, a Scrivener user manual, and video tutorials. These might be fantastic. I have to admit, I've never looked at them. I can't recall if these were here when I first started using Scrivener. I want to say the YouTube tutorials were definitely not, but I'm just going to show you what I do. As you can see, there are options of blank. I don't know what this looks like. I've never done it. Fiction. We're going to come back to this. Nonfiction. Script writing. And miscellaneous. Persuasive lecture. Recipe collection, which is kind of interesting. But we're going to come back to fiction. So as you can see, there's novel, novel with parts, and short stories. So if you're a short story writer, you can use Scrivener. But we write novels. Now, do you want to do a novel or novel with parts? I write pretty straightforward novels. Mine don't have parts, but if you are writing one that you know is going to have parts, look, they've got one set up for you. So we're just going to do a basic novel. So we're going to give it a name. Let's call this YouTube novel because I'm boring. And then you want to put it somewhere, home writing. This is where I put all of my books, so it'll auto-save any new files to wherever you want to put them. But for the purposes of this video, I'm going to save it here. So we're going to create. Voila, here is your new Scrivener. Make that full screen. So as you can see, it's always going to open you up to this, which is going to tell you how to do stuff. Again, I haven't read this since I first started using Scrivener. This could be really useful for you to come to and use, but I'm also, again, just showing you what I do. So we're going to start here, which is where it says manuscript. This is where you're going to put the stuff for your book. Does this look familiar? This is the corkboard that I was talking about. When you create a novel in Scrivener and you create folders, which are chapters, so we're going to actually rename this just so that I can show you. This is chapter 1. On the corkboard, now you have a scene card for that chapter, or a card for that chapter. And if you click into any of the individual chapters, you'll have cards for the scene. So as you can see, a folder is a chapter, and then you have a scene. And it looks just like any notebook pad that you would use in Microsoft Word. So back to here. It's really easy to create chapters. You just do new folder, and then you name it. You can name it anything. I name them what the chapter should be. But for example, let's say you have alternating point of view. You could name these the names of your chapters. As you can see, I just went on autopilot and I was in the folder. I clicked the plus sign and I created a scene file. So when you want to create a folder, you are going to do the drop down button and new folder in order to create that. So again, let's say that your book has alternating points of view. Let's say one character is Jane and the other character is Rochester, just to use one of my favorite examples. That is how you would create it so that it looked, you had the alternating chapters with your characters. So let's add scene files to all of these. You can also name your scene files. They'll say Untitled until you start typing in it, and then it'll rename as whatever the first line is, unless you give it its own special name, which might be like brooding, so that you know that this is the scene where there's brooding, or what have you. Now, I started typing in the default settings, which as you can see is Courier New, 12-point font, single spaced. I don't like this. Courier New is really old school when it comes to manuscript formatting, and generally agents and editors don't want to see it. What they want is, and I'm going to delete the text to do this, they want Times New Roman, 12-point font, and they want it double spaced. Now it's going to ask you change spacing, and indentation. Do you want to apply paragraph indentation? You are going to say yes. This is how you automatically get it to indent the first paragraph in your text, which is, again, kind of basic manuscript formatting. So it'll do it automatically. Now, as you can see, I just did that manually, but we can set the text so that it is the same for every single document. So you want to go to Options, I'm going to go to Editor, and you're going to set it right here. This changes the font, Times New Roman. You want to keep it 12, nothing else special there. Then you want to do 2. It's going to ask you the same question again. You're going to say yes, press apply, just be safe, then okay. And then we're going to go in here and look, it's applied your text settings. So that's how you're going to set up your text. Now let's go back to our main manuscript board and see. Look, we have our note cards for each of the scenes. So if you click into this, you can make notes like party, very tense. I don't know, I'm totally making this up. Number 2 would be conflict happens, inciting incident. I don't know. I am not someone who finds notating my scene cards particularly useful, but I know that a lot of authors use this method to keep themselves on track. I think the reason that it doesn't work for me is my pantsing nature. Anything where I have to kind of analyze or take notes feels like outlining to me, and it makes me want to cry. But this is a tool that you can use. Let's talk about another tool that you can use in Scrivener that I don't use, but that a lot of people like. So you are in your scene file. Let's just, put some text in here. So you're going to click this little I button, and look what you get. You can add a synopsis to your scene. You can color code it if you would like. Again, not something I use, but you can. You can do a status. Look, no status to do, first draft, revised draft, final draft, etc. Including compile. We're going to talk about compile in a minute. This is how you're going to take everything for your novel and export it into a Word document or a PDF or whatever format that you want. And if you click this, it means it's included. You can add notes for the document, just like free write whatever you want here. This can be notes about what you need to write or character notes. You can also make generalized project notes. So this could be anything like overarching world building or character outlines so that you have a reference here as you are writing your various scene. So next, I want to show you some of the other stuff that you're going to see here. So we're going to go down here to characters. So this is a corkboard space that they've created for you where you can put notes about your characters. So we can do the same thing we did before. We can add something here and we can put like names, for example. And you can brainstorm names for what you want to call people. I don't know, I'm making this up. Jack, but personally, I do use this section. It doesn't look like this. But depending on where my book is set, I might do like, girls, boys, Swedish. If I need like specific nationalities, then I'll have a list of names that I find interesting, first names, last names, so that I can kind of start to create characters. And then you might have a file for your character. So let's say you're going to do a file for Jane. Jane is 18. She has brown hair. I don't know. Whatever works for you. I know some people do elaborate character profiles, and this would be a really good place to put it. Also a good place for any research or anything like that. You can do the same thing for places. You could always retitle this, in fact, world building. Great place to stick your world building. So that could be, science or magic, what have you, whatever works for you. But you're able to kind of stick everything you need into these sections so that as you are writing, you can always be like, oh man, what's that person called? Well, you're going to go to your master character list, which is this file, but you know what I mean. Or, how old did I say Jane was? Oh, she's 18. You could even put her birthday in here. Whatever works for you. Or world building. Oh man, how do the genetics work? Well, I'm going to go to my science file. Or in my case with Brightly Burning, I have a bunch of different ships. So I have a master ship list that sits in my Scrivener. And anytime I need to, I can just go there and be like, oh yeah, that's what I called that ship. So it's just really nice to have everything right here where you need it. So the last basic thing I want to show you before we get into how to compile your document and also how to import an existing novel into Scrivener, I just want to show you how you can manage your word count goals. So you're going to go to project, you're going to go to project targets. So you need to decide how long you want your book to be, and however long that is, that can become your manuscript target. As you can see, you can do words, you can also do characters, but generally we don't measure the length of a novel in terms of raw characters, so words is really the way to go. So let's say, well, I write science fiction, so let's say we want the first draft to be 80,000 words. So this becomes our manuscript target. Now your session target, this is going to be the target for, each time you open Scrivener to work. So my targets tend not to be ambitious, but let's say yours are. So let's say your target is 1,500. As you can see, we've written 15 words since we opened Scrivener. So there's a tiny little bar and it is red. You can, of course, make this, let's say our goal was 50, you'd have a lovely orange bar showing you progress. Let's just nudge this down so you can kind of see what it would look like. 30, it's turning yellow. 18, it's green. And if you made it 15, you would be hitting your goal. So the same thing is going to happen right here with your manuscript target. Of course, you can scale this down to anything that you want. And then as you work, it's going to fill the bar so you can kind of see where you are. As you can see, this is only going to include documents included in the compile. Typically, characters and world building, whatever you're putting over here, is not going to be included in your compile because you only want to include the actual stuff of your manuscript. Now, you don't have to close and open Scrivener every time just to reset your session target. You can also just hit the reset button and it'll start it all over for you. Now Scrivener has something here called front matter, as you can see. So this is going to be essentially the title page for your manuscript. And they have one right here that already has some formatting in it that you can use. So first of all, the first thing I always do is I change this to Times New Roman so that it matches the rest of the document. Leave this. This is a formula for your word count. It'll automatically generate it based on the documents that you include in your compile. So that'll be the word count in your manuscript. Now here, there are formulas for your project title and your name, but I honestly have never fussed with this. I always just put it in. So let's say this were my book. It would be Brightly Burning by Alexa Donne. I just fill it in. And then here, when you're querying, you're not going to have an agent, so you can just delete that and then add a space, so that's still there. You're going to do your name, your address, your phone number, and your email. So when you do compile, I'm going to show you that you're going to click this to include this page in your document. So now let's look at those compile settings. So you're going to go here. You're going to go to compile. You want to expand it here so you can see the full thing. As I mentioned in my how to format your manuscript video, where I also went over this, it does have a manuscript format, the standard manuscript format. But as I mentioned in that video, I never use that because it'll spit this out in Courier New, and it's going to convert things like italics to underlines and do all sorts of funky stuff that is a holdover from when manuscripts were typed on typewriters, which we don't do anymore. So I always set up a nice custom setting so that it does exactly what I want it to do. So I'm going to show that to you. So we're going to start with page settings right here. So first look, we're going to change that font. That's the header font. This is going to be the font of the very top of the manuscript where it has your last name. This says abbreviated title. It's a little formula, but just put your full title unless it's ridiculously long. So mine's Brightly Burning. And then you're going to leave the formula for page number. It's going to automatically generate the page numbers. I am not using footers, so I never do this, but if you decide that you're going to use footers, that's fine, but you don't need to. You just need a nice header. Make sure that not on page 1 is checked. This ensures that your page count starts on the actual first page of your manuscript and not the title page. Next, you're going to go to transformations. So you're going to uncheck all 3 of these. You don't want to straighten smart quotes. You don't want to convert em dashes to double hyphens, and you don't want to convert ellipses to triple periods. And then uncheck convert italics to underlines. These are all the funny things that, again, it's kind of a holdover of old manuscript formatting. These things will annoy someone at your publisher eventually, so might as well not deal with it now. Next, you're going to go to formatting. So level 1, as you can see, are the chapter headings. Now, I don't have separate titles for each of my chapters. It's just chapter 1. So I uncheck title. If you don't uncheck title, this actually does mean, of course, you can have titles and subheadings for your chapters. This means that whatever you call this will be your subheading. So in the case of, those alternating chapters of Jane and Rochester, this would then say chapter 4, and under it would be Jane. Now, as I also mentioned in my last video, I've had to play around with this, and it's possible that I'm just using Scrivener wrong, but I'm showing you how I set up compile, and I go through each of these, and I set it to Times New Roman so that it has the font that I like. Through trial and error, I've never quite figured out what I'm doing wrong, but I figure it's safer to just quickly do this for each of my documents. It only takes a minute, and then I know that it's going to compile exactly the way I want to. I don't honestly know what all of these mean, and isn't that hilarious that I am showing you how to use Scrivener, but this is how I figured it out for me. I always uncheck title because I don't title things. I always change the font to Times New Roman, and inevitably it compiles the way that I want it to, so why mess with what works? So that's basically what I do. And then back to here. This is where you're going to see all the things that are going to be included in your compile. So these are included in your Word document, and these are the things that contribute to your word count. See here, add front matter. This is where you're going to choose that title page that you formatted, and it's going to automatically insert it in the front. Now, compile for. This is where I always do a Word document. You can do a docx or a doc. You can do a PDF, as you can see. You can do all sorts of formats here, but your bread and butter is probably going to be a Word document. So you're going to press compile, and it's going to show you a folder into which you can spit this file. You name it, whatever you want to name it. This is YouTube sample 1, I don't know. Then you would click save, and it's going to generate a Word document for you. Now we're going to pull it up, but it's going to look funny because there's actually not any text in this novel. But hey, look at that. You've got the front matter, 32 whole words, guys, with the title page. Look, you've got the header here, and the page number starts on page 1, chapter 1, and blah, 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 blah. And then you'll see chapter 2, nothing, chapter 3, nothing, chapter 4, chapter 5. Note, it is not pulling the character names, the names that I called those chapters, because I didn't click the title button. So you will want to do that. All right, so now I'm going to show you how to take a novel that already exists, whether it's the full novel or part of a novel, in Microsoft Word and import it into Scrivener. This is for any of you who want to try Scrivener but have already been writing in Microsoft Word. There is a really easy way to do this, so I'm going to show you how to do it. In order to do that, I am going to have to start a new project. So we're going to follow the steps again. Fiction. Novel. We're going to call this YouTube novel import so I can tell them apart. We're going to save it in the same place. Click create. So now we've got a new Scrivener document again. Now, I'm going to open up a document that we're going to import. This is actually the last digital copy of Brightly Burning, so that's fun. So as you can see, this is my book, Brightly Burning, and I'm not revealing any secrets here because this first chapter is currently available on ew.com, which is why I thought it would be okay to show you this. So I just am opening this so I can show you, look, it's a Word document. My chapters are formatted about a quarter of the way down the page. My chapter headings are in all caps because that's how Scrivener formats things, and I do recommend to you to do it that way. And I'll tell you why in a minute, but if you haven't, that is okay. But so you have your first chapter. I'm just going to show you one more. Chapter 2, some space, etc. Okay, so this is what your document looks like. Chapters are done like this. I don't personally in this document have scene dividers. You might. If you do, that could come in handy for you, but I do not. So this is what your Word document looks like. So we're going to go back to the Scrivener file. You're going to click on File. You're going to go to Import, Import and Split. It's important you pick Import and Split instead of simply importing a file. If you simply import a file, and you can just import your Word file, it's going to import the entire Word document into a single Scrivener scene file, and that's not what you want. You want Import and Split so that it's automatically going to split up your chapters or your scenes. So you're going to select the file. Now here, this is a section separator. Some people format their manuscript where they use a little hashtag to separate their scenes. As I mentioned, I don't use scene separators like this, and you likely don't either. So this is how I import things. I put chapter, all caps, because this is case sensitive. So if you have your chapters and it's not capitalized, you have it spelled like that, that's fine. But if at any point in your manuscript you have the word chapter capitalized like this, and it's not actually the start of a chapter, it's like a line in your document, it's gonna create a break there. It's not the end of the world. How many times do we really use the word chapter in our novels? So mine are in all caps, it's case sensitive. So I put chapter in here. Then I click OK. Now something I do want to mention, and I just kind of came over here and fixed what I had done before showing you. So sorry for that backtrack. You do want to do this in the manuscript section because it's going to pull your book into whatever section you are on. I kind of forgot that. Sorry, guys. So I'm in the manuscript section because this is where you want to have your document. So again, we've got chapter, case sensitive. I've got my document selected and we're going to hit OK. Look at that. It has now divided every single chapter of your book into separate scene files. Now, you're of course then going to have to do a little bit of legwork. First of all, you don't need your title page because you have your front matter separately. So you're going to move that to the trash. You can delete this sample scene file, move that to the trash. Now, this is your first chapter, so you have to move it into the chapter 1 folder. And then you are going to have to create folders for all the other chapters and manually move everything in. I know what you're thinking, oh my god, that's tedious. It is a bit tedious. So it is going to be a bit of a setup process converting all of these over. But in the scheme of things, it's relatively easy, and it is a way to take an entire book and move it into Scrivener. So you're going to create each of your chapter folders, move the scene, which is the chapter in, and then the other cleanup thing you're going to have to do, because it's imported all of your space, is you're going to do this with each one. At the end, it's going to have a bunch of extra space. So you'll do this to each chapter/scene file, but a little bit of legwork, and you'll have your entire novel re-exported into Scrivener so that you can work on it in here and then export it again. Now, this is just kind of very basically getting set up in Scrivener. There's a lot more that you can do in Scrivener, and I will cover some of those things in my Scrivener Basics video, which is coming up next. Now I'm going to throw you back over to my lovely face, and I'm going to wrap this video up. And we're back! How was that? Was that helpful? I hope that was helpful. So that is how you get started in Scrivener, set up your file, so on and so forth. I'm going to be doing more videos throughout the rest of the month covering other things that you might need to know about Scrivener. There's some more basic functions like Basic 2. Like if this was Basic 1, I'm going to be covering Basic 2 in my next video. Just kind of some of the little bells and whistles that you can use in Scrivener that might make your writing process, but also especially your revision process, a bit easier. So stay tuned for that one. Let me know down in the comments any questions you have, and that includes requests for specific things about Scrivener you do want me to cover. I'm filming these videos throughout the month, so there's definitely time to let me know things that you're curious about, and I can add them in to my next video. Or I can just answer you in the comments, either or. So drop comments down below. Give this video a like if you like it. You know, I'm always curious to know how the kind of on-screen demo videos land with you guys. If you like it, give me a thumbs up and I will know to make some more. Thank you so much for joining me, and as always, everyone, happy writing.